have, hold on. The recording is giving me a funny. Well, welcome to the Inviting Shift Show. I hope we're recording now. Today we have a guest with a lot of energy. Her name is Sunchana, and she's going to tell us all about one of her shifts about, well, I'll let her tell you so that I don't mess it up. But this is the Inviting Shift Show. I'm Christina Smith, and I am an AHA addict. So I just love to hear about people, how they, realized that they had an issue and then kind of got to the AHA and then kind of implemented that AHA so that they could have real transformation and shift in their life. And these stories are so cool because they run the gamut from, oh my God, from financial woes to identity woes. I mean, it's amazing. So these stories are so cool to me. So welcome, Sunchana, for joining us, and thank you for joining us. Sorry.
No, thank you so much for having me.
Oh, yeah.
It's my first blab.
Oh, yay, first blab. Yeah, the first timer sign didn't come up, though. So you've been on Blab and you've watched before?
Actually, no, I signed in like this morning to try and make sure that everything's good. Because I wanted to do the pre where like we made sure that it worked, but I just honestly didn't, from moving back from Germany, just did not have the time.
Yeah, so tell us about yourself. You just moved.
Yeah, actually, I say moved. We live in Germany for 6 to 8 months of the year, and then Canada 4 to 6 months where we're from. So yeah, that's actually part of my shift. Is that 2 years ago, I kind of moved and went and did my teacher training in Spain and then moved to Germany. So yeah, that's kind of where my story, where I think that's the portion that I told you about. But yeah, so did you want me to start in or?
Yeah, go on into your story because that sounds like it leads into who you are today.
Yeah, so that is like the final portion of it, but the shift started like a very long time ago. It was a few years before that where I had always been really lucky because I was a healthy kid. I was very athletic. I was happy. Everything was fine. But I don't think I realized that I was chasing like a detox, a feeling good sensation. And then it just kind of came naturally because I played sports and I did all that stuff. And even, I haven't actually told a lot of people this, but I struggled with like eating issues. And I mean, which girl doesn't in like high school? But the thing was that I almost felt, I hung out with these girls that had eating issues, but I almost felt like a fraud. Like I was like, yes, I want to be skinnier, but I don't want to get too skinny. Like I had a happy body weight that I felt, I didn't realize until much, much later that actually it wasn't a happy body weight. I just associated it with that. It was actually just a happy general being where I felt really good. And as a result, I just equated it with, like looking at what everybody else around me was doing. I was like, oh, well, I weigh a little less. Like I honestly, every time, even when I talked to those girls, I kind of felt like, but I only want to lose like 3 pounds. I don't want to, like, some of them would like look at pictures of girls with like their ribs and stuff sticking out. And I was like, no, I don't want that. No, thank you. So, I didn't really realize it. And then I went to university and I started being very sedentary because I wasn't really playing sports anymore. And I mean, I would go for a run every once in a while, but it was just kind of, and I knew that felt good, but I didn't really understand it. I just thought like, oh, I'm just, like getting not feeling so hot. And then as a result, my family has quite a few autoimmune issues on my mother's side. So as a result, my health started deteriorating. And it kind of came to a peak where I really thought like, okay, something's got to be. Like I was going to doctors and things like that. And I was really getting answers that I kind of was like, oh, this doesn't really jive with me, but I don't know. So I'll just do it. And it was actually, so like my hair started breaking. I was having really bad candida issues. And I don't know if anybody knows that. It's like a yeast issue, overall body. So like kids, when they have like thrush and things like that, a lot of the time it's connected. And that is like a breakdown of your immune system. And it was actually like a hairdresser that said to me, like, oh, your hair's really bad. Like, I struggled with candida. Have you looked into that? Like, no, I haven't. So then I started reading up on it, and I realized there was all these symptoms of like dry skin, breaking hair, like just a minute, like just a whole array of them. And I started realizing like, wow, my body doesn't understand how to detox unless I force it. And as a result, I got into yoga. I went back to exercising, which, I mean, if I'm being completely honest, I never fully stopped. I just didn't do it as consistently. We were very, like, my family's a very, like, sports oriented. So I would still run, like, I could still pick up and run at like a 5K and not really feel that bad. But it's just that I didn't do as well as I would normally if I was in my best shape and best health. And yeah, so then I kind of had this moment of like, wow, what am I doing? Like, why have I been, you know, taking these antibiotics and all these things that are actually just wreaking havoc on the things that I should be fixing, the things that need to be fixed. And then I started looking into that. I might have went a little bit overboard at that point. I actually just wrote a blog post for a friend of mine that actually talks about how I kind of broke it down into like 3 different groups of people and how we kind of migrate between those 3 when we hear things like green smoothie or green living. And initially when I figured all that out, I kind of like jumped off the deep end and was like, I'm all healthy, everything. I'm not doing anything that doesn't, but I worked at a bar. So, I mean, there's only so much you can do. You still got close if you want to make your money. You still got to work until 3 a.m. So you can't, you know, go to bed at 9 p.m. like you want to and get up at 6 a.m. and go for a run. So eventually that kind of, I knew what I was working towards. So I was working towards covering my school loans and then doing my yoga teacher training. And I did some smaller like traditional Chinese medicine trainings and things like that along the route of that as well. And then about 2 years ago, I'd met my boyfriend. We had already been dating for a bit, but he works in Germany for part of the year. And I kind of said like, well, if I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it. So I went to Spain and I got my yoga teaching certificate, which was awesome. However, I didn't really feel that like, I really went in with high expectations, I think, where I was like, I'm going to have this life-changing experience. Everything's going to be amazing. And I didn't fully have that experience until I started Yoga Tune-Up, which is the brand of yoga that I teach now. It is more, we use yoga therapy balls to try and kind of find your blind spots and find the things that you're overusing, underusing, abusing in your body, and to try and bring you back into alignment so that eventually you can bring your mind back into alignment as a result because you're not sitting in pain. So, yeah, that's kind of where I am now. Sounds good.
Okay. So that's amazing, your shift that you had there. And it seemed like a really long, fluid shift. Like, I tell me about that. Like, how did it feel, the whole shift going through it? Because it seems like it took a long time and lots of little steps to get you where you were going.
Yes, it did. And to be honest, I kind of played with the idea for a long time before I actually kind of went and did that plunge. I mean, we had talked about me moving to Germany like the year before, and I kind of talked myself out of it because fear will get to you. But I knew that's what I wanted to do, and I just knew it needed to happen. Like, I knew that I like serving for the purpose of the interaction that I get. But I get that in yoga teaching as well. Maybe not as much, but it is, I just like the idea of being able to chat with people and I think I'm like a happiness junkie in a way, for lack of a better word, where I'm like, when somebody leaves happy, I'm like, oh, I did so good. I get that same high from my yoga class as well. Yeah, separate yourself from the ego there. That didn't happen. But
That's right. We just had a guest on last week who was talking about that same thing, and that for a while, she was a teacher of Zumba, I believe, when Zumba first came out. And for a while, her class is what kept her going because the girls were so excited to have her come that they would look excited to have her, and she felt needed and she felt like she had a purpose. And it really, she was really serving someone in a good way, or lots of people. So, I mean, I think I think, service jobs and all of these things that we do, coaches, all of that, they all, provide a really fantastic service. And the only reason we don't put more value on it is because we can't really quantify it like we can, stuff that we have in the closet or wherever, in my attic. My gosh. But
when moving between two countries, you'll find out how much stuff you have real quick.
Gosh. Well, my issue is I've never lived in a house over 3 years in my lifetime. So now we've been here like almost 6, and it's like, holy cow, what do people do with all of their stuff? And we're pretty minimalist. Like, we don't buy stuff. We're not a regular consumer. But that's kind of getting us off the point. See how Blab can just go way off there.
Oh my goodness. I could tell I get on a tangent and I'm in the world.
That's why I love Blab. But so what did you have any major moments where you were like, wow, like I really need to shift this perspective that I have on how I'm treating my bodies? Because I think a lot of kids go off to college and it's like freedom, and they're eating, Cocoa Puffs for breakfast and pizza all day long. And
oh my goodness. And drinking and just
and not sleeping as much as they would be, not, exercising or getting outside, because all the other time that they're not partying, they have to do a little bit of studying.
Yeah, that's true. That's what you go to school for, right?
But yeah, I mean, but that happens to a lot of kids and a lot of people, even if they don't go to college, just whenever they move out of the house, whenever that is. So did you have any major moments where you're like, wow, something's got to change here?
Honestly, it was when I first picked up like the first health. I actually have it. I have it. Hold on. This book.
That's a good book.
Yeah, what had happened was I went to, after this hairdresser said like, oh, have you looked at Candida? And so I went to Chapters, I believe, and a bookstore. And I just started in the health section, and I literally flipped to the index and just looked for Candida. Mm. And that book actually has a really like well-explained section on like what you do per week, I believe. I haven't looked at it in a really long time, but per week or so. This would have been like 7 years ago now, maybe longer. So yeah, it has like a very set through what you do. And I was like, you know what? It's not going to kill me to try it. And I've never been one of those people that like hates vegetables or anything like that. I didn't like them cooked necessarily, but I would sit there and just like cut up a pepper and eat it. Like I think honestly, that was probably my saving grace in university, because I did really enjoy like an apple, a pepper, like I did like those things. Yeah, so I think the fact that I didn't just eat pizza and just eat, because I could have. Mm-hmm. That's the stuff that was, but every once in a while, like I did know enough through my body that like I would walk through the fruits and vegetables aisle at like Sobeys, and my body would just be like, oh, I just really want to eat that entire pepper, or I just really want that cucumber. So I looked at it and I was like, oh, this seems pretty, like I could do it. This doesn't seem like it's that hard. And I tried it, and within like a week, I was like, oh my goodness, like I feel phenomenal.
Yeah.
And even like my friends were like, wow, like it's not like you've never been bigger, but you've like, you like look good, like you look healthier, like you look skinnier, but in like a good way.
Yeah, well, not puffy is I think what they say, because when you have Candida, it's just like when you have like a gluten intolerance, even you start like packing it on, and plus you get like some people even get like a grayish color, and they get the bags under their eyes, really, or dark circles, something is going on.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's a lot of things. Skin rashes can even happen, and
I had pretty bad ones.
yeah,
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 and it wasn't anywhere like super obvious. It was like on the backs of my arms and my legs and things like that. But
yeah,
yeah, they were pretty bad. And yeah, that was basically like when I tried that, I was like, this is unbelievable. Like how has this been like how has nobody like I was probably dealing with this issue for I would say at least 3 or 4 years before I figured this out. And I was like, how has no doctor, nobody said, hey, listen, why don't you try a bit of a cleanse? Why don't you try? And that's kind of where I made the big shift where I was like, well, this kid, like something's got to change. And
yeah.
yeah.
Well, I mean, and that's cool that you discovered that while you were still in college. I put off all the feelings that I was having in my body, all the different things, because no doctor ever would tell me that, hey, why don't you try this or that without it being on a prescription pad. And so I just, took the pills and ignored it, took the pills and ignored it until it got, like, for me, I got ulcerative colitis. And
Yeah.
like I know, oh gosh, it's terrible. It's terrible when it comes back, but no doctor ever really gave me the right diets. They gave me the white diet, which was like the worst thing for me. White chicken, white rice, white bread. Like, are you kidding me?
I know. I look at some of that stuff now. Like I look back, I remember distinctly going to, and this might be a little TMI. So if you get grossed out, you can just, but I had yeast issues. And so I went to the doctor for like probably the millionth time. And I literally said like, hey, like, is there something I can do? And she said, oh, some females are just more yeasty than others. Why don't you just pop a Canestin once a month?
Mm,
And I was like, okay, all right. So I kind of did it, but then I was like, this is getting worse. This isn't like getting better. And it's
yeah.
unbelievable because within a week of changing my diet, my body was like, thank you. And
Yeah. Yeah, I forget who said it, but like I guess a lot of people say it, but like our bodies want to heal. They definitely do. It's just that we're not always very conscious over what we're doing to them by just like you're saying, little things with diet and just making sure that we're, being active to some degree because I'll tell you, lately I've been squirreling myself away to write this book. And on the days where I don't at least go outside for a walk with the dog or something, I am feeling rough and almost to the point like where I feel like I'm getting a fever. I feel like I feel like I have the flu coming on almost just because I haven't moved. It's not good. So I'm so thankful that spring is coming back and I can go walking again.
no, we got like a big bout. We don't really, the area we live in Germany doesn't have a lot of snow. And we just got here and it just like,
Oh yeah, we have hardly gotten any snow all winter. We had one with like 3 feet of snow, one storm with 3 feet of snow, and then nothing for the rest of the year, really. Just
waited until we were back in Canada.
yeah. Well, welcome home.
I had a pretty rough drive in from the yoga conference the other day. I was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah,
But
yeah. I'm not driving in the snow either. Um, So about your shift, some of the questions that we had lined up was, so what would be, describe your something ain't right stage where you realized that something had to change. I guess we just did, where you were in college and you were like, wow, I'm really having all of these issues. And it was cool that I mean, to me, you embodied what I call inviting shift, which was, even though it took you a few years, once you saw this book, you were like, well, let me try that. But it just seems like that's your attitude, just to go out and try different things, which is awesome because some of us are not like that. Some of us will kick and scream and put it all off until we absolutely know it will help.
yeah, I think I was at a point though that I was like, this is not like the worst. What's the worst that's going to happen by me eating like more greens and eating more, olive oil? I kind of forget what it is because I've done a lot of different things and I found a lot of different things that work for my body since then that weren't really included in that at that point. But yeah, like there was, like eating cucumbers and things like that. I was like, I like that stuff anyway.
Yeah.
What's a week gonna do, right? So I think the diet in total was 3 weeks, but even still, I was like 3 weeks, like that's that'll fly by.
Right.
So yeah, I think that it's just not set up, and I didn't really realize it either. Like, I think I was also lucky being at home because as much as I went, like when I was in high school, as much as I went out and did whatever I wanted, and like because you make your own money and you go to McDonald's or whatever, and I did I worked out a lot because I played tons of sports, so I literally sweat some days like 2 or 3 times a day. So nothing was going to stay in my body was good to rejuvenate itself. And then B, on top of that, I mean, I would say at least 1 or 2 meals a week I would eat at home with my parents. And my mom is very, very healthy as well. So, I mean, a lot of the time it was just like funky looking stuff that I was like, what is this? I still don't know to this day. But
It doesn't matter. It's healthy for you.
exactly. But I mean, I'm sure that stuff helped, right? That under like cover for a while. Although in traditional Chinese medicine, they also talk about how you kind of cheat disease until you're 21 and then everything catches up to you.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah, and I mean that would have been around the age like it wasn't like first year of university that this happened. It was like I think it was like second or third. So it literally would have been, and I'm sure it was like kind of piling up at that point, but yeah.
That makes a lot of sense to me because 21, I had 2 surgeries the year I was turning 21. Two, yeah, so that makes perfect sense to me. And because I did not have a healthy upbringing, I had the exact opposite where there were some like home cooked meals, but a lot of those home cooked meals had processed foods in them or, mac and cheese out of a box or whatever. Like it wasn't always like fresh veggies. We did have frozen veggies, but there was a lot of meat and potatoes based, instead of really plant based. So that was a little different for me. And I was kind of taught that it just wasn't that important. Like that's the message I got, whether or not that's what my mother taught me. That's the message I got. It wasn't that important. Just fill your stomach and move on, So when I was 21, I ate ice cream for breakfast because I was a bartender. So I'd eat breakfast at like 2 in the afternoon. I ate my breakfast of ice cream, and then I didn't eat until I went to work, and then I ate whatever processed food they were cooking there. And I mean, that was my life.
My first couple years of university, I worked at a pub of all things. Like I bartended at a pub. So literally I ate like chicken wings and poutine was like meal after meal after meal. And yeah, I mean, it's not that like when I say my mom's very healthy, she's very healthy for her own reasons. Like I said, there's a lot of autoimmune issues on that side of the family. And I don't fully think the whole context of it is still fully understood to her. But I know that she probably felt better when she ate certain ways and did certain things. And that's why. And luckily for me, I got the quote unquote athletic portion of my dad's side where, like I said, I could pick up and run a 5K. So to me, I felt like without stopping and still under 30 minutes. So to me, I'm like, I mean, it's not a great time, but like I can do this. And so clearly I'm healthy. Clearly I'm fine. Like I'm fit. That was like my definition of fit. If I was to, I think like when I think back, if I was to ever have gone out for a run and not been able to finish like a 5K loop, I would have been like, oh, I'm so out of shape. But to me, like the fact that I could, so I almost feel like that might have been a bit of a detriment because had that had not been the case, I might have thought about it earlier and, brought the diet portion into my life earlier and went back to exercising and back to all that stuff. So
And I think one of the tricky things too is with like women like you and I, when we stay pretty thin or maybe just 5 to 10 pounds over, it's like everybody's just like, oh, look what she can eat and she stays thin. And they don't realize like how many health problems that I actually have. Like at this point, I can't have garbage in my diet because it makes me so ill, like, and they act like, I mean, they treat me like it's like, like they're jealous and they want to, I'm like, everybody's grass is greener.
I mean, and that's the thing. And even like, I think that my boyfriend and I have this conversation quite a bit because he'll say, like, I think it was about a year ago, my old boss got diagnosed with like, it was benign, but like a cyst the size of a grapefruit in her ovary. And she had like no clue. And, we have this conversation where he's like, that's what scares me is when people have no idea and it comes out of nowhere. He's like, when you say, because I'm very like, I'll get up in the morning and be like, oh, you drink water, my liver's feeling it or something like that. Or I'll be like, oh yeah, I know, like immediately. I'm such like I'm almost like a freak about it. And if I don't know what's causing it, I like lose my mind. But he'll say like, what worries me is those people that had no idea. And I'm like, you know what? Yes, but also how many of them maybe just weren't in touch with their bodies and they just have no idea. Like they're not,
yeah,
like they don't understand like things have been shifting for a long time, but to them it's such a slow shift that it slowly becomes a new normal.
They become so unconscious to it that they don't even notice it anymore. It's just like anything. If you see it every day, you don't notice it until it changes again, or sometimes you don't even notice when it changes because it's just a shift over time. And I completely get that. And that's actually like the second stage. So in my book, there's 5 stages to shift. And that's like the second stage is if you've never connected to yourself, that's the time to do it because that's really the only way that you're going to get all of that information to know how you move forward. Because I really believe that people who are disconnected from their bodies are also disconnected to spirit. They're disconnected to who they truly are. There's what I call their spiritual connection, which literally defined means, bonding to our moral fiber. So if we don't really know who we are, what are we bonding to? Like what is that connection? And so the second stage is called honing in and honoring, so that you're really getting to know who you are and why you make the choices you make so you can decide how you want to make them in the future, and I think that part of it is like what you said, when you hear what your body wants when you're walking through the produce aisles and your body's going, I'll have some of that fresh produce, please. And that happens to me too, because like I'll have, nights where I'll go splurge on dinner, oh, I'm going to go have something and I'm going to cheat. And I don't call it cheating. I just say this is, going to be what it is. And then yet I'll still be like, oh man, that salad sounds so good. And I'll completely surprise myself that I actually don't want the burger. I actually really want that salad. And I think that that's so important. And just in the last few years, I've really gotten to listen to my body, and I feel the same way. Like I know I can feel my kidneys, I can feel my liver, like I can feel all of those things. And some people say it's hypersensitivity, but I really love that because then I know what's going on. And to me, it's like I can catch those things before they go really, really wrong. Because before I was so ignorant to all of those because I just kept ignore the body because it was in so much pain and it was screaming so loud. And that's what happens when we don't take care of things. They just get worse and worse, and the body finds a new way to scream. Like you had all of those issues, the hair falling out, and it's like, oh, that's not enough. How about some rashes then?
Yeah, exactly. And it's just your body saying like more and more and more and more until you finally say like, hey, listen, I'm gonna look into you.
Yeah.
It's funny that you say that because I do like the style of yoga that I teach it is a pretty physical based yoga, but the idea is to get in touch with those places that you don't normally get in touch with. So like we'll roll on yoga tune-up balls and like you'll find a spot in your back or in like the side of your hip that you're just like, my goodness, I did not know this hurt. Like I didn't know that this needed. Or we'll do like a corrective exercise that you're like, wow, I didn't realize I'm that like my adductors are that weak. And the whole idea is to get in touch with your body so that like meditation becomes lighter. And in order for that to happen, you need to be in perfect alignment. Our body is meant to hold itself up a certain way. And if you're sitting there being like, man, my neck is cranking the entire time, how are you going to meditate? And Jill Miller actually gets criticized for that a lot, but because it's not quite as yogi as people would like it, but that's what she says, like if you're not in touch with your body, you can do as many chaturangas as you want. But if you do them all wrong, and I don't mean wrong, I mean like you do them all where you're hurting your shoulder, well, that bill's going to come due someday.
There's stress or something.
That bill's going to come due to your shoulder someday, and you're going to end up with a dislocated shoulder or injured in some way, and then you're not going to be able to continue it, and then your meditation and your practice is going to get so thrown off as well. So it is about connecting both of those, right? It's not just about I'm doing the physical aspect and I'm doing like the meditation, and they're separate, and that's what we're doing. Like it needs to be together. Yeah. And you need to do things in a manner of, I'm going to squat down, but I'm going to use these muscles because these are the correct muscles to bring me down to a squat, and to do I'm not just going to drop and then injure myself.
Right. Spirit guide me. Right. But I think that's when you say like human, I think that like really embraces human spirit, right? The physical human part of us and the spiritual, being that we are. And I love that because I can see how that works to really ground someone. Like I go for walks a lot. I do yoga at home. I am too lazy to leave the house to do a yoga studio, even though there's one a few blocks down.
Well, works for you. If it's not sustainable, what's the point?
Yeah, I like to go every once in a while to have them like correct my, poses and whatnot, so that I feel like I'm, somebody's looking at me once in a while to make sure I'm doing it right and I'm not just,
which is good.
Yeah. But like, I mean, I think that the part of the walk too, like, especially during the day when I'm working, to go out and take a walk, it's just that moment where you can take your mind somewhere else. Like I refuse to think about whatever's back here unless it's like a creative working walk. Yeah, I mean, sometimes you just need to really go back and ground yourself. And I'm really lucky because even though I live in a town, I have like a little old trail right next to me, so I can go through the woods and everything, and my dog can chase deer, and that regrounds me, which is kind of similar, because it's a different type of meditation. It's not really a meditation, it's more of a, I love nature. I think it's like, to me, they say, who's the guy who says I have a god too, only I call him nature? I forget who said that, but
I've heard it, but I have no idea.
That's how I feel about it. Like, I love to be there, and that is how my spirit recharges. But I think that that's so important to physically and spiritually recharge yourself often during the day, during the week, whatever.
Yeah, 100%. You have to find what works for you and how you're going to make yourself your best self. I mean, that's essentially what I am out here to do in general, is to help people realize that you might think you're chasing like skinny, or you might think you're chasing like a sub 2 hour half marathon, or you might think you're chasing, I don't even know, the extra 50-pound deadlift or whatever it is. But what you're actually chasing is that feeling you get when you feel at your absolute best.
Yes. Let's talk about, have you read The Desire Map?
I haven't. I really want to read it.
Oh, because that is the essence of it right there, is that we start living how we want to live instead of living for those goals. So, instead of focusing on, I need to lose weight, no, you focus on the feelings that you want. If I lost weight at my healthiest, I would feel, what does happiness even mean to you? Because happiness is kind of a generic word.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how is it that you want to feel and then focus on that? Because focusing on the extra weight that you're carrying just makes it multiply and however far I've seen, you know, but focusing on wanting to have more energy or feeling stronger or feeling lighter or whatever your thing is that you're wanting to actually feel. That's the important part, not these little tasks or goals that mini goals that we put to them. I think it's so important what you just said, and I can't believe you've never read the Desire
No,
Map. And
I really haven't.
you get a gold star.
I like it. Yeah, I've wanted to. I've seen the book, but I haven't actually read it. I just, yeah, like that's just always been, once I kind of clued into that I really, really thought for a lot, like I said, I thought that like, you know, I wanted to be skinnier but like in my head, I was like, I don't want to be like that skinny. I just
Yeah.
want, but I didn't understand it. Like I couldn't put it together. And
Right.
you know, and then I started running again and I was like, oh, well, I need to hit this goal. But really, it was because when I was out for a run, if I didn't have a goal, I would get bored. If
Yeah.
I, and then I wouldn't do it and then I wouldn't feel great. So then I was still chasing that feeling. I just didn't understand that that was the feeling.
And it's good to have goals. I think it's just the expectations. We can't let them like rule our life when we don't meet them, you know? And well, and the way she got this was that she said that when they did goal planning, her and her husband, it was kind of boring because it was like all these materialistic things. Like they wanted to pay this off, they wanted to get that, add this onto the house, whatever. And then she was like, ugh, this is kind of icky. So then she also thought about how, like, we plan for these goals and we say, oh, I'll be happy when I get there, or I'll relax when I get there. And she was like, why don't we plan for all of those feelings every day? Like, why don't we do something to make ourselves feel that way today, even if it's not the big goal? Just, you know, if I want to feel vibrant, why don't I wear fluorescent socks? Or if I want to feel abundant, why don't I, you know, give to charity or I don't know, you can think of a million things, whatever makes you feel abundant, you know, wear a crown on your head for all I care. Um, yeah, but however you want to feel. Hey, sometimes when I need to bring out my queen archetype, I'll do the dishes with a tiara on my head. I don't care. I have no shame.
I like it. I like it. I, I'm right there with you. No shame. I
I mean, you gotta act silly sometimes, just to like, I mean, we take ourselves so seriously sometimes.
think that takes a lot. Like, I think it takes a lot to just be like, I'm here. This is what I'm doing. And, you know, I think I get a lot of laughs out of people because I'll say things like that. Like, I met probably just about a month ago, I met Kelly Starrett's wife, Juliet Starrett, and she's phenomenal. But I met Jill Miller introduced me, and she was like, "Oh yeah," and I was like, "Oh yeah, I totally know who you are. I've totally stalked all of your Instagram." She's like, "Oh, okay." She's like, "Go ahead, go on and stalk." And everybody around me's like, "As if you admitted that." I was like, "Well, I'm not going to pretend I didn't just like 30 pictures in the last 30 seconds. Like, no, I know who she is." So I think it does take, and it took me a really long time to be able to do that.
Mm.
Um, and I still get very tripped up on it sometimes, but I think sometimes I just spew it out and I'm like, well, it's there. I'm not going to backtrack. So,
You know, at some point you just have to say it and see what happens.
and it's just not, there's, you know, like there's just no point in not doing it. What's like,
Right.
you know, the only people that really matter are the people that are going to love you for it no matter what. Right.
Yeah.
And so, yeah,
Yeah.
it's,
And I think that there's a real truth to vulnerability and authenticity. I mean, I don't think people care what kind of person you are as long as you're honest about it and you're sincere about it. Like, hey, you just own your own stuff and that's all they care about. You know, I think about like there's sometimes on TV shows, I can't think of one right now. There's like characters that are like you're like, what is wrong with this guy? And yet he's so lovable because like he is honestly like Joey on Friends, right? He is honestly that dumb. Like he doesn't mean to do dumb things and, mess up things, but he just can't help it. But he's honest about it. He knows he ain't the smartest.
Oh yeah.
Smartest one.
Oh, that's
So
such a great show.
yeah, yeah, but he's honest about it. And so I think like authenticity and vulnerability will get you a lot further than having like the perfect personality or saying the right thing all the time or whatever. I would much rather somebody tell me what's on their mind than the PC thing that they're, trying to translate it into. Like, just tell me. Like,
I completely agree. And it won't necessarily always agree with me, and like we might have it out or whatever, but at the end of the day, I would rather than you say like, "Oh yes, of course, that's exactly what I want," and then resent me for the rest of your life, or whatever it is. I don't want that to build. It's not necessarily.
yeah. And it creates a distrust. Like, if I don't feel like you're being absolutely truthful with me, then I may not be absolutely truthful with you. And I mean, so here we are getting off topic again. But I think, look, it's almost been an hour. I think that we covered the whole shift. I love this. So now today, can you put in your link in the messages so that if anybody comes back to the embedded replay, they can get right in there?
Sorry, my link that I got from this, or
No, for your website
that's
or
what I
where they can
thought.
find you and more information. Yeah, no more. Do all my work. Put in.
It's a bit of a lengthy. Um,
That's all right. It'll link when it gets in there.
yeah, it's a bit of a long worded website, but I really liked it, so I just went for it.
Cool. Well, then that's important.
Yeah,
It didn't come up for me.
it's still saying it's working, so it's giving me the little ticker.
Oh man, Blab's having a time.
Maybe if I do this.
Well, we'll get it in there. In the meantime, I'm going to pause the recording.